Hi guys, welcome to my fall wrap up. This is everything I read in October and November. I think there's 11 books, and honestly, this was a really good reading season for me. I read a lot of things I really liked. To start off October, I read the first 2 books in the When in Rome series. The first one, When in Rome, follows Amelia, who is this really famous pop star, but she's kind of struggling with fame, so she ends up driving to this random town, Rome, Kentucky, because she loves Audrey Hepburn and the movie When in Rome, and since she can't go to Rome, Italy, she goes to Rome, Kentucky, and she ends up meeting Noah, who is this like grumpy pie shop owner in this small town. And since she has nowhere else to stay, he agrees to let her stay with him for a few weeks before she goes back to her life in Nashville. Honestly, I wasn't super into this for the first like half. I just couldn't really connect with either of the characters, and it felt sort of insta-lovey, but they also don't get along. It was this weird dynamic of like, okay, are they enemies? Are they into each other? What's going on? And they just didn't feel like real people to me. They kind of felt like caricatures. But then once I got like halfway through and more into it and more invested, I decided that I actually think they are the cutest ever, and they were really, really good together. And I ended up really liking the last part of it. This book also has very strong Hannah Montana movie vibes, which I love. And it takes place in this really cute small town that is literally Stars Hollow, like almost an exact replica, just if Stars Hollow is in Kentucky. And all the side characters are just really fun. And overall, I did end up enjoying this. I think I gave it 3 stars, and I liked it enough to pick up the next book in the series, which is Practice Makes Perfect. This was actually a reread. I read this earlier in the year, and then I was just gonna read When in Rome because I hadn't read it, but then I just couldn't stop thinking about this one, so I had to reread it. This one follows Annie, who is the sister of Noah from the first book, and Amelia's bodyguard, Will. He's in town because Amelia and Noah are getting married, so there's been a lot more paparazzi and stuff trying to get to them. And Noah and Annie kind of know each other because he was Amelia's bodyguard, but they've never really actually like spoken or spent any time together until Amelia starts meddling, because Annie is like a very goody two-shoes type character. She's very innocent and sweet and nice. She's never had a boyfriend or anything. And Will is like kind of a player, but not in an asshole way, which I appreciate. He just like gets around. So Amelia volunteers Will to be Annie's dating coach. And this book is just fun. It's one of those relationships where they just make you smile, and they're really cute together. They also balance each other out really well. Will kind of takes Annie out of her shell, while Annie kind of grounds him. There's such good tension. I love the dating coach trope. It's so fun. It's sort of like fake dating, where it's like, is this real? Is this not real? And part of the story is that Will is just supposed to be there for the summer until the wedding is over, and then he's supposed to leave. And I really like how that part of it was dealt with, because it didn't feel like one of the characters was compromising more for the other character or doing something that wasn't going to make them happy, you know, so they could be together at the end. Again, they just balanced each other out so well. They were so fun and cute, and I just really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. Also, except for one instance, the miscommunication trope is terrified of them. I felt like they talked about everything. Anytime someone was uncomfortable or like having a moment, they were able to talk it out, which I so appreciate, because the miscommunication trope just doesn't do it for me a lot of the time. I then read Wildfire by Hannah Grace, which is the second book in the Maple Hills series. The first book is Icebreaker, and Icebreaker is a hockey player, figure skater college romance. So this one follows Russ, which is another hockey player on the team, and Aurora, who is another student at their school. And they have a one-night stand. It's really good, but it ends kind of awkwardly, and they don't think they're ever going to see each other again, so it doesn't matter. But then they both end up working at the same summer camp as counselors. Definitely a very different vibe from the first one. I just kind of assumed that all of the books in this series were going to be sports romances, and this one is definitely not that. It pretty much has nothing to do with hockey, except he happens to be on the hockey team, which for me personally is fine. I'm not like obsessed with sports romances, so I didn't really care. And I thought the summer camp was a really fun premise. I loved Russ in this. I thought he was so cute and sweet, and just I loved him so much. He also has anxiety, which as a fellow anxiety haver, I appreciate. Both characters also have a lot of family troubles they're dealing with, specifically daddy issues. And Hannah Grace is so good at writing friendships and relationships and found family. Her side characters are always really good, and her relationships always have this very easy intimacy that feels very realistic. They hug, they cuddle, they kiss, you know, stuff like that, which makes me feel extra single, but also makes the book more enjoyable. And I was worried because it's set at a summer camp that the kids would overpower the story and it would just be too much, but they really don't. They're only in it very briefly, and it is definitely more so focused on the adult characters. And I really liked it. I will definitely keep reading these as they come out. The next book was actually just announced, and it looks so good. It's another guy on the hockey team, I believe, and his tutor. The cover is like them at the library, and she's wearing the folklore cardigan. Are you joking? Definitely reading that when it comes out. I read A Court of Thorns and Roses. I did an entire reading vlog on this, so I'm not gonna get too into it. If you want to hear all my thoughts, I'll have that linked somewhere. Basically, the SparkNotes version is I didn't like this that much. I think there was a lot of potential, and there were moments where I thought I could like it or that I was going to start liking it more, but unfortunately it just didn't get there for me. However, I feel like I've heard so many people, including people I know in real life, say that this one just isn't that good, and it's the rest of the series that everybody loves and is obsessed with. And because I did see potential in this, I do think eventually I'm going to give the second one a try. I just was really sad that I did not love this because I really wanted to, but we'll see. I hope that I love the rest of the series, but who knows. I then read Caught Up by Liz Tomford. This was my first Liz Tomford book. I tried reading the first book in this series. I think it's called Mile High, and I couldn't get into it, so I was a little nervous for this one, but it has so many tropes that I love that I decided to read it, and I'm really glad I did because I did like this a lot. It follows Kai, who is a single dad on a Major League Baseball team, and he's very protective of his son, so he's been trying to find a nanny and he just keeps firing all of the ones that they find. But that's obviously interfering with his baseball. So when the coach of his team finds out his daughter is going to be free for the summer, she suggests that she become the nanny. And Miller is this really famous pastry chef, and she travels around the country in her van, going to different restaurants to up their dessert menus and help them get Michelin stars. But she's kind of going through it. She has this creative block and she hasn't been able to bake or think of new recipes. And that's why she takes the summer off and ends up nannying for Kai. This just has so many things I love about it. I love a single parent romance, forced proximity, she lives with him while she's working for him. I love a baseball player, they travel. It just has me written all over it. I really loved the family dynamics in this. Not only their relationship with him being a single father, but he has family problems. It talks a lot about her relationship with her dad, the coach. And Kai and his son sort of mirror Miller and her dad in a way. It's really interesting to see how they all kind of connect in that way and relate to each other. I will say I don't love when characters are immediately super attracted to each other in a book, just because I prefer when they get to know each other and have an emotional connection first. So I wasn't obsessed with that, but definitely wasn't a deal breaker. And it did feel a little long. I'm not sure exactly how long it is because I listened to the audiobook, but I think it could have been a little bit shorter. It had good spice, and if you love a protective man, you will love him. Like, protective, caring, nice, thoughtful. He was a great love interest. Like, I want him. And I know a lot of people don't like kids in books, and I think even if you're not normally a fan of kids in books, I think you could like this because his son's only like 1, so he doesn't really talk or do anything. So even though he's really cute and all their interactions are really sweet, it doesn't overpower the story. A lot of series this month, because then I read Iris Kelly Doesn't Date, which is the 3rd book in the Bright Fall series. The first one is Delilah Green Doesn't Care, and the second one is Ashford Parker Doesn't Fail. And I loved Delilah Green, one of my favorites, and I liked Ashford Parker, so I was excited for this one. Iris is a romance author, but she's the last of her friend group, still single, and she hasn't really done relationships since she got her heart broken, and that's given her writer's block, so she's been trying to put herself out there and get out of her funk. And Stevie, who has pretty recently gotten out of a long-term relationship with the only girlfriend she's ever had, who is now dating their other best friend. So Iris and Stevie meet. They have a really awkward one-night stand, and they don't think they're ever gonna see each other again, but of course they do. They end up both being cast as the leads in a play, which leads them to start fake dating It's kind of convoluted. It makes more sense when you read it in the book. And this one's kind of weird because I really liked it when I was reading it, but then when I was going through the books I read for this video, I realized I had completely forgotten about it. And then I normally jot down notes on each book so I can remember what I'm talking about when I film these, and I couldn't even remember like specific things really about this book that I like, but I also don't remember anything that I dislike. I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, I know I have a really bad memory, but I was just drawing a blank. So yeah, I did really like it. I liked them together. There was good character development. I read it quickly. I just for some reason like can't tell you any more than that. I don't know, but I would recommend it. It was good. I just like have nothing else to add. I don't know, except you do get to see Delilah and Claire from the first book get engaged, which I thought was a really nice way to end this series. I'm assuming this is the end of the series because there's 3 friends in the friend group, so I guess she could expand it. I don't know if she plans on doing that, but if it is the end of the series, I loved seeing that because that one's my favorite, and it was a very nice way to tie up the series. Then I finally read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I feel like I say it in every video, but I am such a huge Hunger Games fan. They are my favorite books ever. Always have been, probably always will. I never like left my Hunger Games phase. I have literally been in it since I was like 10 years old. I read Hunger Games right after it came out and I just have been a goner ever since. But I am also stupid because I put off reading this for 3 years because I really didn't think I was gonna like it. This follows President Snow, and I'm not gonna like sit here and tell you what the Hunger Games is about because I feel like everybody knows, but this follows President Snow. It's his origin story where he is a mentor for the 10th Hunger Games, and he is mentoring Lucy Gray, who is the girl tribute from District 12. I honestly wish I did a separate reading vlog on this because I could talk about this for literally hours. Like, the Hunger Games is definitely my special interest. I could go on, and I would like to formally apologize to Suzanne Collins. I should have never doubted her because I loved this and I thought it was so interesting and so well done. The way she wrote this is just so genius because he's not just evil for the sake of being evil. It really shows you that he has basically every opportunity to be a good guy and do the right thing, make the right choice, and go down a path of goodness, and he just doesn't. He picks the self-serving option every single time. Just shows that his ambition, I think, really gets the best of him. Like, it actually says on the back, ambition will fuel him, competition will drive him, but power has its price. He's just such a complex character. I actually really liked reading from his point of view, which I really thought was not going to be the case. Like I said, I put off reading this because I was like, why would she write a President Snow story? Why would she do that? Like, of all the things she could have done, Haymitch, Finnick, anything, why would she do this? And then I was an idiot because it's so good. It's also really interesting to see how the games have evolved. These Hunger Games are completely different than the Hunger Games that you see with Katniss and Peeta, and it shows that President Snow, even though he's only 18 in this book, how his ideas personally really shape how the games are in the future. And I could not put it down. It's really long. It's like 550 pages, I think, so I thought it would drag a little and be boring, but honestly, even though it's long, there's always something going on, and the stakes are getting higher and things are getting revealed, or there's problems he has to solve, and I just could not put it down. I read this whole thing in like 2 days. Really, the only big like complaint I have, not even really, is I did feel like the third act was a little bit rushed. Specifically the very end, I feel like shit hits the fan so quick, but other than that, I just loved this, and I love the Hunger Games, and I would love to see her expand the universe even more. I don't know if she ever will, but if she ever does, I will be first in line. Also, I've seen the movie in theaters twice already. It's so good. If you haven't watched it, please go watch it. Next was another romance, Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. This is my first Lauren Asher. I tried to read the fine print and just couldn't get into it, but this one I really liked. It follows 2 like family friends, but also sort of rivals. Like, they competed with each other in school and stuff, and then they went to college together, and they have a lot of history, these 2. And now it's like 10 years after college, and she is moving back to their hometown where he is a real estate developer, contractor, something, and She's an interior designer, and her fiance just broke up, so she is trying to get out of a depression, and so their moms convinced them that it would be a good idea for them to collaborate on a house together. I really liked this. I thought it was cute. I kind of feel the same way I do about Iris Kelly though, where I don't really have like a ton to say about it. I feel like there wasn't anything I necessarily disliked about it. I liked it. It's just not an all-time favorite for me. One thing I did really appreciate is that this is a billionaire romance, which I feel like when I've tried to read them in the past, I just don't like the billionaire men because they're very dominant almost, and they're kind of assholes a lot of the time. I feel like the few billionaire romances I've tried to read, I just do not like the guy at all. But in this book, he's a billionaire, but he's very down to earth, and he does use his money to spoil her. But other than that, he's just a normal guy with a nice personality, and he is down bad for her. If you love a man that is just down bad for the girl, this is another one. She says she's craving sushi from this place in New York. They live in Michigan, and he gets a private jet to bring it to her. When is it my turn? And I will definitely continue the series. The next book that you can tell they're hinting at sounds like it's going to be something I love. Then I read the new Ali Hazelwood Check and Mate. This is her first YA book, and it follows Mallory, who was a chess prodigy when she was younger, but she gave up playing, and now she's working this job that she doesn't like. She can't afford to go to school. Her mom has arthritis, I think it is, and so she's like the main supporter of her family, her mom and her two little sisters. But her best friend convinces her to play in this charity chess tournament, where she ends up beating Nolan, who is the literal best chess player in the world, which leads her to get this chess apprenticeship and start competing and playing again. I love Ali Hazelwood, and I like her STEM romances a lot, but it was really nice to see her switch it up and do something a little bit different. This kind of reads like a sports romance, which I did not think it would at all, because let me just say, I know literally nothing about chess, or I didn't before I read this book. I've never played, never watched a competitive chess match, so I didn't realize how much it really is like a sport. And I just love when books have elements of things that I don't know a lot about, and I can learn about new things that I wouldn't normally. Again, he is just obsessed with her, rightfully so. I will say the romance for the first half definitely felt like a subplot, which I honestly didn't even mind because I was so invested in her story and the chess. I literally can't believe I'm saying that I was so invested in the chess of a book that I didn't really care about the romance. Only Ali Hazelwood could make that happen. But then the second half of the book, the romance definitely does pick up and is more of the main plot line. I will say, and I've seen people talking about this on TikTok and stuff, in my opinion, this is definitely more new adult than it is young adult. She's 18 and he's 20, and while there's nothing graphic, there's no like smut, they do discuss sex pretty freely, and it's honestly weird to me because it's not like they're in high school or college or anything. So in my opinion, I feel like she could have just aged these characters up a couple of years and just made it an adult romance. Yeah, this doesn't really feel super YA to me, so if you are like a lot younger, just keep that in mind. And one thing that is like a stupid criticism, but it's just kind of a pet peeve of mine, is there are so many pop culture references in this. It brings up like BTS a bunch, but there are 17 references to TikTok in this, I counted, which I'm just not a huge fan of. I could do without. But overall, I did really like this. Ali Hazelwood is just an auto-buy author for me now. I love her. Then I listened to The Honeymoon Crashers, which is an audio-only novella sequel to The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, which I'm gonna be honest, I love Christina Lauren, but The Unhoneymooners is one of my least favorite by them. In that book, there's a wedding where everybody gets food poisoning, and so the sister of the bride and the brother of the husband, the maid of honor and the best man, are the only people who don't eat at the buffet. So they go on the honeymoon and pretend to be the newly married couple. Spoiler alert, at the end of that book, the couple who got married split up. I don't think I'm explaining this well at all, but now the couple from the first book, the maid of honor and the best man, are getting married in Hawaii. And it's the sister. I'm literally describing this so bad. Now this sister and his best man are planning the other wedding. I should have used names because that would make it more clear. But I really loved this. I thought it was so cute. I normally am not a huge fan of novellas because I don't feel like you can usually like establish enough of a connection in a relationship. But this did not feel like that at all. It really felt fleshed out, and they were just super cute together. It was fun. You know, they're in Hawaii, they're planning a wedding. The love interest is kind of like goofy. Not goofy, he's sort of like a surfer guy, you know? Except it's funny, the narrator for the audiobook is Harry Shum Jr. Where are my Glee girls? He did such a good job. It's funny because the character is like this blonde surfer guy, and I kept forgetting, so I was picturing Harry Shum Jr. and then they'd be like his blonde curls, and I'm like, oh wait, right, this is not Mike Chang. It's also a full cast audiobook, and it has sound effects and stuff and like music at certain points. If you like audiobooks and you want just something fun and quick to read, I would definitely recommend this. I definitely liked this more than I liked The Unhoneymooners. Lastly, I read Betting on You by Lynn Painter. I loved this book. I just finished it 2 days ago and I can't stop thinking about it. It's a When Harry Met Sally retelling. Hello, I love Nora Ephron. And it follows Mallory and Charlie, who meet on a flight and they don't get along, and then they see each other again a few years later at a movie theater, and then a year after that they end up working together. And if you've seen When Harry Met Sally, they have that dynamic where Charlie is adamant that girls and guys can't just be friends. Bailey says they can. They're both trying to get over their exes, and even though Charlie won't admit it, they just become best friends. They have the perfect dynamic, in my opinion. They were best friends first, which I just think is the best foundation for a romance. They flirt, they banter, they joke around. I just loved them. I literally loved them so much. They also end up in a fake dating situation for like a weekend trip away. I love a little fake dating. My one complaint, which is silly, but the first line of the synopsis says, when 17-year-old Bailey starts a new job at a hotel water park, she is less than thrilled to see an old acquaintance is one of her coworkers. They don't work at a water park. They work at a hotel that has a water park, but they work at the front desk, which I know is silly, but I worked at a water park when I was in high school and I met my ex-boyfriend working at the water park. So I was so excited to read about that premise because I was like, this is my life. And there literally isn't a single scene where they step foot in a water park. So if you're like me and you're looking forward to reading about a water park, don't expect that in this book, which I just thought was so weird. Like, why didn't it just say they worked at a hotel? Also, both of their parents are divorced, which I really liked reading from that perspective because my parents are divorced, but they got divorced when I was young. So I thought it was really interesting reading about that perspective, like dealing with that as a teenager. And it's definitely something they bond over. And I just loved this book so much. It's definitely one of my favorites I've read in a while. And if you like YA romances, I would definitely recommend this one. I loved it. I read it in one day. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll have all of my other socials linked below if you want to find me anywhere else. Please comment your favorite book that you read this fall, and I hope you all have a happy December. Bye!